Hi, this is just going to be a quick video for my own use, really, just comparing this Sony NEX VG30 camera with a 30mm macro lens attachment. I got this one super cheap on eBay secondhand, and it didn't come with the normal power zoom lens, but because I already had a Sony E-mount camera, I had this macro lens for it, so I thought I'd shoot some test footage compared to my new Canon Legria HF G30 here. So I'll try and set them up for identical shots. I'll sort of mount them one on top of the other like this, using my little attachment here. So hopefully I can get similar shots between them. I'll try and frame them correctly and use all the same shooting parameters and stuff like that, and try and test out the footage between these two for my own purposes here in the EEV blog lab. This is a test of the Sony VG30, and I'm using full automatic operation, so we should be getting some blurred background. I've got face tracking turned on, recording at full HD at 60 frames per second. So auto exposure, everything else using the built-in mic, but I'm not comparing mics today. And this is the Canon HF G30. I've tried to get the same frame in here, but I think it's slightly wider on this side, but anyway, I'll try and keep the frame in the same. This is a talking head test. Once again, I've got full auto mode on with tracking, face tracking on, auto exposure, all that sort of jazz. So I'm not sure if this will give as blurred background, the bokeh background that you would get on the Sony, because this is not the macro lens, this is the built-in lens, so I wouldn't expect it to be the same quality blurred background. And this is the Canon HF G10 again, but I've manually set the iris to f2, so that's as good as it's going to get. Okay, this is the Sony NEX VG30, just testing an oscilloscope here. Once again, auto everything, auto exposure and all sorts of stuff. So I'll just move my hand in and out. You can probably see the exposure change like that. But I just want to do a detail test on an oscilloscope. And this is the Canon HF G10. Yeah, you notice the calculator in the background here. You don't get nearly the same, well, you get a much bigger depth of field. You don't get that shallow depth of field you get with the large sensor Sony with that macro lens. But anyway, I'm just testing the detail on the oscilloscope. And once again, it's got auto exposure. And this is the Canon HF G30, fixed aperture of f8.0. That's the highest it'll go. And this is the Sony NEX VG30 at, once again, a fixed f8.0, and that has an auto gain of 18 dB. And I can change that up: f9, f10, f13, f14, 16, 18, f22 is the maximum. And this is the Sony on with a PCB test at 45-degree angle, fully automatic iris and everything else. And this is the Canon HF G30, full automatic everything, PCB test. And this is the Sony on a very shallow angle, trying to get some depth of field, very shallow depth of field there happening, with about the center frame in focus. And trying to get the same shot on the Canon. Not quite, but once again, this is full automatic everything. And this is back on the Sony at f3.5, and this lets me manually adjust it as I'm recording, so I can increase it f5. There we go. f5.6, 6.3, 8. And you really have to, with this lens, you really have to increase that a lot before it all comes into focus. That's f16 and f18. It's getting really dark now, so go up to the maximum of f22 before everything really comes into focus. Although it starts to focus, yeah, it's probably equivalent, from what I can see on the screen here, equivalent to the Canon at about f16. And this is the Canon HF-G30 on a fixed f2.2. So trying to, that's the lowest setting possible to try and get the shallowest depth of field there. And this is the Canon on a fixed f5.6. So trying to get a deeper depth of field and more stuff in focus. And doing a whiteboard test from about 1 meter away because I don't have any zoom on this thing. This is the Sony and full auto exposure, so it looks really underexposed on my screen. So I can manually adjust that and manually adjust the exposure until I'm about 70% exposure on the whiteboard there. That's probably, you know, that's starting to peak. And now the Canon HF-G30 whiteboard test, hopefully the same framing, exactly the same distance. So I'm, as with all these shots, I'm adjusting the zoom on the HF-G10 to match the framing of the Sony, and that's with full automatic exposure. If I manually set the exposure and take it up once again to about that same 70% exposure that I get on the that I got on the Sony, there we go. That should be a reasonable comparison. And this is both cameras hopefully getting the same frame, just sort of getting most of the bench here, and hopefully, yes, I'm in shot, or I should be at least. So there you go. There's just some basic test between the Canon HF-G30 and the Sony NEX VG30. Not, you know, it's very difficult to compare them when one's got a proper fixed macro lens on it and one has just got a generic ×20 zoom on it. So really difficult to do a comparison. So sorry about that, but that's what I've got available here. And the internal mics are probably going to be really horrible at this distance. Some things I don't like about the Sony, let's go up closer. The Canon is, here we go, ta-da, that's better. Whoop. The Canon HF-G30, apart from the video quality, which I expect the Sony to be better at, don't know which camera to look at. Ooh, it's weird. I think that the Canon is a much more professional camera for video blogging use. The Sony, it's got a gimmicky VU meter on it. It's not in the same class as the Sony, just the general operation of it, access to things like that, limited recording modes and stuff like that. So not that impressed with the Sony, but I'm sure when I review this footage I will be impressed with its image quality, which is what it's all about with the large APS-C size sensor, plus the macro, plus the available lenses as well. I do like the tally light on the front though, to tell me that the damn thing's recording. That's pretty good. So anyway, there's some basic tests between the Canon HF-G30 and the Sony NEX VG30, and yeah, I think the Sony's a little bit gimmicky. It's just not as polished. The options aren't as powerful, not nearly as powerful. For example, the Sony doesn't even have automatic gain on its built-in mic, or not that I can find. Maybe I need to read the bloody manual. Anyway, yeah. So I'm still happy with my Canon HF-G30 for video blogging use, but for really, if you really want top image quality, then, something like this Sony or a digital SLR, for example, is going to be impossible to beat. But, the camcorders like the Canon HF-G30 just aren't designed for that sort of video quality. But the resolution should be fairly similar, so it'll be interesting to see the resolution differences between the two and stuff like that. So there you go. Hope you found that useful, and I have to go review the footage. Catch you next time.